Alright, so this is boxMan video tutorial number 12 and part 8 of rigging. During the break I set up the right side of the body and I thought about something just while I was testing my own rig. Pole vector interpolation is very kind of confusing in Maya. It seems like it doesn't work when it actually does. I think they changed this in Maya 2011, so that does work for the most part. But just to show you guys, I have both feet on the ground, and so my pole vectors should basically be in their default rig position because my knees are in their default rig position. If they were actually up here, the knees would be pointing differently. For example, if I barely move this, it'll snap basically down there because the interpolation is off. So see, it even thinks that it's in 0, 0, 0, but it's not in 0, 0. If you just select it, type 0, 0, or just type 0, it goes back. The way that you get this problem is you move the foot around to where it changes to the location of the pole vector, and you hit undo, and the pole vector just kind of floats there. The way that you get it back is you can type 0, 0, 0 on the foot or on the pole vector, or slightly move either one, and it'll snap back. But again, we want to keep everything in 0, 0, 0, so pole vector and foot control, so I'm just going to type 0, 0, 0 in it. I'm going to make sure the same for my left leg too. Alright, so at the end, I grouped the hips upper control in its own group, and I parent constrained it to the bottom hips control. Sorry, not yet. We lost the lower half of our body. Alright, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and parent constrain the hips upper control group to the hips lower control. So I'm going to select this as my master, control or Apple select the hips upper group, control parent constrain. So now when I move my hips lower, this control does move, and that's correct. I think the problem is that I never actually constrained the hips upper correctly. Let's see. Yeah, so I never actually constrained that correctly. So to do that, I told you guys to do an orient constraint on this. That is correct when you have a more complicated spine setup, but it actually needs to be parent constraint on it. So another important thing to learn is how to delete constraints, how to see constraints, because you know that they're there, but you might not be, they're right there, but how do you get this to be not blue? So you select the thing that's constrained. If you have trouble finding it in the outliner, you can hover over in the outliner, hit F to frame up. This also works if you want to frame up on a specific object. In the viewport, you can hit F and it frames up on it. It framed up on all this because because joints are parented to each other. It selected all of them. But anyway, so I've got my hips upper right there, and you notice it's cracked open right here, and you have hips upper orient constraint. That means the hips upper is constrained with an orient constraint somehow to something. If you select that orient constraint, look over here, you can see what it's constrained to. The hips upper control, it has a weight of 1. So this is where you would change it in set driven key. Again, I'm not going to go over that in this tutorial, but that's how you can key it on and off. So we want to delete this constraint. Just select it in the outliner, hit delete, and now I'm going to select the hips upper, and I'm going to shift select the I'm going to select the hips upper control and shift select the hips upper joint, constrain, parent, and I'm also, let's see, actually I might be wrong on the parent. I believe it is orient. Let's try this real quick, sorry. I'm going to do orient constrain there. Okay, I remember what it is. Alright, so it's actually not parent constraint on the bottom. I was wrong about that too. I'm sorry. I'm giving you guys wrong information. Basically, let's go ahead and delete that constraint on the hips lower. Again, that parent constraint, and we want to do an orient constraint on the hips lower. Orient constraint, and then we want to do a point constraint on the root. So hips lower control, point constraining the root. Alright, so now with the way that this is set up, everything should move properly. Notice that the feet pull towards the control down there because the IKs are pulling there. And the hands stay towards the hands. And see, our rig basically follows with it. I forgot to parent constrain the group of this R, so I'm just going to do that really fast. So I'm going to select hips upper, Apple or control select the right elbow pull vector control group, and I'm going to just do parent constrain. There we go. So that works properly, and when I move this, everything moves with it except for the head control and the head aim, or sorry, the head orient control and the head aim control. Alright, so very quickly, I'm going to select this control right here. I'm going to do an orient constraint on the joint, and this is the head is kind of confusing. You're going to orient constrain the joint to the control, and when I say orient constrain the joint to the control, people kind of get confused thinking, oh, I click the joint first, then click the control. No, you want this to be the master. So master, slave, orient constraint. We're just going to test to see that that works. That does work. And then you want that control to always move with the neck. So you're going to select the neck, or sorry, the head. Well, yeah, the neck joint. Select the control and then do a point constraint. So the control chooses the orientation, but the joint chooses the position of the actual neck. Alright, lastly, I'm going to make this aim constraint. I'm going to make an aim constraint on the neck, so I can put this anywhere I want and the head will always look at it. So I'm going to shift select, master, then slave, control, aim with offset. Offset is very important. It's usually a given. You always do that. So since I'm in Z coordinate system, Z up coordinate system, I need to change my up vector to Z. This follows as X, Y, Z. Same thing for world up. My Z will be Z has won it right there. Constrain all access is yes. Hit apply. And so now I can move this around, and look at that, the head looks where I want it to look. So you can do stuff basically like if you had the, if you set up that set drone key thing that I keep talking about, you could, like, let's say put it that you want him to be looking over here at something like on a table, right? Then you could animate him to be walking this way, and he will always look at that specific spot. But I'm just going to group this by itself, name it head aim control group, head aim control GRP, and then I'm going to make sure that is, let's see, I'm going to put it on the group pivot point on right here on the hips. I think that's the best place for it right now. And then I'm going to parent constrain that group to the hips upper. Select the hips upper, head aim control group, parent constrain, and so now when you move this body handle, everything should move with it. Notice that the interpolation of the pole vectors is kind of off, but they all snap back when we want them to. Alright, so lastly, we need to make sure that everything moves with the master handle and that it scales how we want it to scale. So we basically select the master handle, select the control curves group, Apple our control select it, parent constrain it, and scale constrain it. And you're going to do this to each group. So master, SF geometry, master control joints group, parent constraint, scale constraint. Master IK, parent constraint, and scale constraint. And hopefully, because everything always works the first time, it should work. When I scale it down, everything stays perfect. When I rotate it, everything stays perfect. When I move it around, everything stays perfect. So like I said, try and break your rig. Put it like in an awkward position, scale it up, see if stuff still works. Move it around like that. Alright, so this is basically our unbreakable rig that will always be at 1% right here. Or sorry, a scale of 1. You can get it back easily. In the next step, we're going to do binding.